most deserving this knowledge of being thrown away if it brings you to such a state. And he would reply to his mother. He said, Ya Ummah. He said, Oh mother, if I wanted the dunya, I could have it. The dunya has come to me. If I wanted it, it's here. He said, but I didn't do this for the dunya. I was looking for something else. What I was looking for was the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would know that I didn't back down on this knowledge. And I didn't sell my deen. And so you'll see, for example, Imam Ahmad, Rahimahullah, and all the scholars went through times like this. That when he went through the beating that he went through, and the lashes, he would constantly remember what Abu Hanifa Rahimahullah went through. And so he had an example in the scholars that came before him, Rahimahullah. Imam Abu Hanifa Rahimahullah, and again I know we live in a time where fiqh issues come up, and someone says, oh, the hadith is so clear, Imam Abu Hanifa is wrong, but you live in a time like that where people don't understand what the scholars went through for this knowledge. And just to give you an example of the kind of actions that Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah did. Imam Abu Hanifa, there was not days that passed that he did not read the Quran. So he would do a khatm al-Quran, and there's different narrations, some that say he finished every single day or 3 days and so on. But his days were filled with the recitation of the Quran, reviewing the Quran. Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah was always giving sadaqah. Every single day of his life, as it was narrated by him, that he always gave sadaqah. So like they'll say, give a monthly pledge or something like that. This was a daily pledge. He was always taking care of the people in his community. Like we said, he took care of his students and the needy people. So sadaqah was every day. He went for Hajj for 55 years. Meaning that since he was 16 years old, ever since that day till he passed away, rahimahullah, he always performed Hajj and frequently going for Umrah. So he never passed up those opportunities. Abu Hanifa was a person of Qiyamul Layl, reciting in the night. And as you see, when we talk about the other scholars like Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he would see students of knowledge coming to halaqah studying Islam, and some of them might sleep over his house, and he would put water for them to make wudu during the night, come in the morning, and the students sleeping. And he'd say, Subhanallah. He said, عَجِبْتُ مِنْ طَالِبِ عِلْمٍ لَا يَقُومُ اللَّيْلِ. He said, I'm amazed and shocked. How is it possible that someone considers themselves a student of knowledge, but they don't get up for Qiyamul Layl? إِنَّا سَنُلْقِي عَلَيْكَ قَوْلًا ثَقِيلًا. And so you see this, one of the benefits that we see this, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, as Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah said, that if the scholars are not the walis of Allah, then there is no wali to Allah. And so when you see who is a wali of Allah Azza wa Jal, you'll see people, inshallah, like Imam Abu Hanifa. And what did he do? He didn't do any wild things or crazy things that people do. He didn't do bid'ah. He didn't do this or that. He did what the Prophet ﷺ taught him, what the teachings were. And this is how he came closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. His life was full of this. And so whenever someone says, I want to come closer to Allah, come closer by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us. Allah Azza wa Jal taught us the path to come closer to Him, and so we follow that path if we truly want to come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have the example of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. There was a man who came to Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, got very angry, started shouting, and he said, Ya mubtada', ya zindiq. He said, oh you innovator, oh you, and zindiq is like a kafir, someone who's gone to such an extreme in their deen. And so when you see accusations against the scholars, don't think that it's something that came now and people in the past didn't do it. There was always ignorant people. From the beginning, there's ignorant people till today, and it'll keep coming. So Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, how did he reply? And usually the replies come, and we also need to learn how to reply like this, because those kind of statements will come. How do we reply? He said, غَفَرَ اللَّهُ لَكَ. It's a dua. It's not out of sarcasm. It's not out of humiliation. He said, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive you for what you've said. He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows of me خِلَافَ مَا تَقُولُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who knows the hearts, the one who knows the intentions, knows opposite of me, of what you've said. He said, that I haven't turned to anyone except Allah. After knowing Allah, that I didn't turn to any God or anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I don't hope for anything except Allah's mercy. And I don't fear anything except the punishment of Allah. And when he said, and I don't fear anything except the punishment of Allah, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah started to cry. He started to cry and he couldn't continue. And the person who was listening to him, he said, forgive me. He said, ij'alni fi hil. He said, forgive me for what I've said. He said, in kunta jahil. He said, if someone is from the ignorant, the lay people, fahuwa fi hil. They don't know what they're doing. They're ignorant, I've forgiven them. He said, but if someone has knowledge, they know what they're saying. He said, fahuwa fi haraj. That they have a burden on their back for what they said. If they have knowledge. They may have learned some things, and now they're making statements like this. And he said, when that person backbites, and Abu Hanifa rahimahullah continued, that when that person backbites on the scholars, something is left behind in their hearts. Something evil and something bad that can eventually take over that person's heart. It can eventually overcome them. That is the danger of a person spending their time speaking about this person, speaking about that person. When Abu Yusuf rahimahullah was asked about Imam Abu Hanifa, the Khalifa asked him about him. And Imam Abu Yusuf was speaking about his teacher. He said he was very quiet. Meaning that in the lectures, someone would ask a fiqh mas'ala, and Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah would be like this, like a flowing stream. But if it was not time for lesson, he just didn't go back and forth. Oh, did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? He was quiet, thoughtful, thinking person. But when someone asked him a fiqh question, again, like a flowing river. And he said, Abu Yusuf rahimahullah, the years and years that he was with Abu Hanifa, he said that I found him to be someone who concerned himself with his own mistakes. Meaning he took the time to go and say, what have I done wrong? And spend his time like that, and not spending his time following the mistakes of other people. Not following the mistakes of other people. And the Khalifa, when he heard this, he said, indeed, these are the etiquettes and the characteristics of the righteous. These are their characteristics. And when you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessing His fiqh legacy in such a way, you have to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't bless someone like this without a reason. One of the things, like you say in the Hanafi fiqh, that sometimes we don't pay attention to, and that is, sometimes we'll say witr is wajib instead of saying fard. Someone who doesn't understand like the difference between fard and wajib, why are they always calling it wajib? It's fard, and there's no difference. But I'm going to give you a significant difference of why they used to do this. And they learned this from their teachers. And that is from their taqwa of Allah Azza wa Jal, that they don't want to claim something to Allah Azza wa Jal, saying something that is fard, something that will go to hell, an issue that the scholars have differed upon. And so in their humbleness to Allah Azza wa Jal, they will say, for example, makruh. They're like, what do you mean makruh? It's haram. Makruh tahrimiyya. You'll see this. And if anybody understands Hanafi fiqh, they will hear that. Makruh. Why are they saying makruh? And again, the legacy may have been forgotten why it's happening. But it comes from a tradition of humbleness to Allah Azza wa Jal, humbleness to the Quran and Sunnah, to not say something that perhaps they may be incorrect in. And right before we pass along, there's actually something that we're going to study in the Usul al-Fiqh class. But I'm going to give it to you here because not everybody might be able to get to the class. One of the things that I studied there in preparing the class was mustahab kifaya. You know fard kifaya, such as ghusl janaza. Washing the body, fard kifaya. Someone has to wash the body. Salat al-janaza, fard kifaya. And then it comes in the books, is there such a thing as mustahab kifaya? Such as saying Asalamu alaykum. What if nobody did it? It's only mustahab. It's not fard to say Asalamu alaykum. What if just all of the people of Houston said, look everybody, let's just stop saying Asalamu alaykum. It's only sunnah. It's only mustahab. Could they do that? Mustahab, is the equivalent, you will say sunnah, meaning something that's encouraged, but if you don't do it, there's no punishment for doing. And so Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he said, there is such a thing as mustahab kifaya, meaning that if these people don't establish this action, they will be blameworthy. they will be sinful if the entire community doesn't do it. The example that he gave, the dalil, the proof, is that the Prophet ﷺ would come and they would be on the outskirts of a village that they were going to attack. It's a time of war. This is a village that they're going to attack. The Prophet ﷺ would hold the army back. Till when? Till Fajr Salah. And again, there's many lessons there. Till Fajr Salah. If the adhan is given, the mission is aborted. If the adhan is not given, meaning the people didn't come for Fajr, they were to be considered kuffar. Do you hear that again? If the people didn't come for Fajr, they were to be considered kuffar by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by the Sahaba, and they were to be killed and fought in that battle. Maybe afterwards, no, we were Muslim, but that was the sign. Were they Muslim or not with Salat al-Fajr? But specifically, the adhan. If the adhan wasn't given, the adhan is sunnah. To say the adhan, you can pray without saying the adhan. It's sunnah, but the Prophet ﷺ